Calling to the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Good evening. For those watching, we have 3 board members present via phone, Board Member Parker, Board Member Ryder, and Board Member Tolke. We also have Board Member Baker and myself present, trying to follow the social distancing and allowing for space so that if there is public input, we have less than 10 people in our room. Due to this, we will be making sure that the board members who are via call make sure to introduce themselves before they speak or make a motion. And I'll be taking all votes via roll call to assist with that as well. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting held March 23rd and March 25th?
So moved.
I have a motion. I have a motion Tolke and a second Parker. All those in favor signify by saying aye. I'll start with Board Member Baker.
Here.
Aye.
Or aye.
Board Member Parker.
Aye.
Board Member Tolke.
Aye.
Board Member Ryder.
Aye.
Board Member Mickelson, aye. Passes unanimously. The minutes of the meeting are approved. Nobody has signed up to address the board this evening. We'll move on to approval agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Board Member.
So moved. Parker.
Okay, can you be the second, Parker? We had Baker, their little leg here. Board Member Baker, motion, and Board Member Parker, second. Take roll call. Board Member Baker.
Yes. Aye.
Board Member Parker.
Aye.
Board Member Tolke.
Aye.
Board Member Ryder.
Aye.
Board Member Mickelson, aye. Passes 5-0. Approval of the agenda. We'll now move to the good news report. This evening, it will be a little different. We're going to have Dr. Maher address and give an update of all the COVID-related issues the school district has been addressing.
Well, good evening, everybody. It is my pleasure to speak to you tonight.
Is the mic not on?
There, I turned my mic off for just a minute and shouldn't have done that. I apologize. It's a pleasure to speak to you tonight. I don't know that I'll hit all of the COVID-related issues that we're dealing with, but hopefully I'll highlight as many as I can. And then I'll stand by for questions on any topic, whether I've brought it up or not. It doesn't mean that it shouldn't be discussed here. So please bring up issues that you think that you need some information on. I will stop after I exhaust a topic and see if there are any questions on that topic before I move to another topic, so you don't have to remember it too long. Because typical Brian report, this could get a little lengthy. So I apologize in advance. No sleeping at home. First off, I would say in response to disseminating material, we're working hard with the Multicultural Center and the City of Sioux Falls to help all of our families, regardless of the language spoken. And we're trying to do that to help understand what's going on in our community, more so than just educationally. We're looking at that as part of the ecosystem that is the City of Sioux Falls, and our role, our social responsibility, as much as our academic responsibility in that regard. As you know, we're spiking with the active COVID-19 cases, and as you also know, there are a number of workers from Smithfield who have been bitten by the virus. As you may or may not know, Smithfield is the 4th largest employer in the City of Sioux Falls, and many languages are spoken by Smithfield employees. And many Smithfield employees have students who attend Sioux Falls School District. We want to be a part of the communication process here, and we're pleased to offer any assistance to the city that we can in this regard. We're working to provide some of the communication saturation, I call it, that our community needs at this point. I don't think we're the primary communicator. I just think the city is trying to figure out who has a large reach, who casts a long shadow in this particular area. And as a school district that has 91 languages spoken in the district, we certainly qualify in that regard. So that's kind of a big picture communication with our partners in the city that we're talking about right now. I'll go more into the food distribution and the distribution of school resources later. So if you're wondering, do those two overlap? They do. But I wanted to get that first piece out there where we're really doing our best to help the community in terms of getting the communication out, where there are language barriers, there are cultural barriers, and there are issues that we deal with on a daily basis, or maybe we can be a resource for the community in terms of communicating. That exhausts my first topic. Any questions? Okay, I'll go to my second topic. As you likely recall, the governor discussed how workers in several vulnerable categories should stay home for 3 weeks. Some of those were if you are 65 or older, if you have a number of different chronic illnesses. First off, I would tell you that as a school district, we think that order makes good sense. Second, we wanted to determine what it means for our workforce, and we're slowly figuring that out. As of last Thursday, we know we had 30 custodians impacted by the order, and by impacted, I mean folks that would need to be off for those 3 weeks. In addition, we know we have about 50 other employees from various employment groups who are also impacted. Now, that wouldn't include our teachers, because our teachers are at home, or at least are at a remote location currently. But those are folks who we might call in to work on a periodic basis, if not a daily basis right now. There has been an impact to our workforce, and we're okay with the impact as we continue to work with employees to make sure that they are not experiencing financial hardship as a result of their loss of work. I suspect we have many more employees impacted than the 80 that I've identified, but those were the most recent numbers that came to me. And I just bring that up as that certainly does impact our workforce, and to some degree impacts our workflow. But with our work being done quite differently today than it was a month ago, it's got a far less impact than it would have had if we were still in session. Any questions on that topic?
Just, I need to come over there so I can talk into this too, sorry. My question would be, if someone's at home or they have an employee that they know that maybe has questions, should they just reach out to their representative from their group to get that through Becky? Because I know Becky's probably being flooded with questions and so forth.
Yeah, really good question. And I would say there are a number of ways they could do that. They could do that through their representative of their employee group. They could do that through a building principal if they feel comfortable there. They could ask information directly of human resources. I know that's happening in great volume right now. And you're right, Becky Dorman and her staff are flooded. While the workflow has decreased for a lot of different work groups, not so in human resources. They are flooded. So those would be the 3 ways I would say immediately. I would throw a supervisor in as well. So a supervisor, a building principal, a representative from an employee group, or directly to human resources. Food distribution. This is a topic that's near and dear to our heart. Food distribution still remains at the levels that I had talked about with you 2 weeks ago. As you recall, we started out providing meals at 6 locations in the district. We thought we would just do what we were doing in the summer, what we were accustomed to doing. And we realized very quickly that that wasn't going to be enough. So we went from serving at 6 locations to still serving at those 6 locations and making over 90 stops with school buses that provide distribution of food and distribution of school resources in our community. This becomes a bit more problematic as the community spread of COVID-19 takes a wider swath in our community. We've worked to improve our social distancing between workers and recipients of the food and school materials, and between recipients as they wait to receive their food or school materials. We discussed this topic multiple times in a week, and we're still looking to improve the process with 2 goals in mind. Goal number 1 is that we want to make sure kids get fed. We want to eliminate food insecurity in our community. And the second goal is to make sure our staff and the recipients of the food and school materials remain safe. We've looked at distribution protocol. We've had distribution protocol put out by Molly Satter, our health coordinator. Once she did that, I think that alleviated some concerns, and we continue to get better at what the process looks like. But we're also looking at the potential of providing more food per stop and having fewer stops. And I don't mean fewer stops along the way. We still anticipate having the 90 plus, and we'll still add if we need to. But I'm talking about rather than going 2 times a week per stop and providing lunches for a couple of days, maybe we do once a week and provide lunch and breakfast, by the way, for the entire week. So we still take care of the food insecurity issues, and we restrict the number of social interactions that we have for both staff and for recipients so that we do the best we can for reducing the risk of infection. That's the biggest thing I would say. We also, there is some conversation out there about being able to distribute 2 weeks at a time. I know Mr. Veek is working with Joni Davis to looking at that being a possibility for us as well. So we're looking, again, the 2 goals. Number 1 is to make sure that students get fed. And then also number 2, to reduce the interaction, the social interaction we have between our staff and the recipients of that food. Questions on the food distribution and how we are doing that? Yeah.
Sorry. This is Cynthia. So with, I guess, the children who might be in quarantine now because of family members who are affected by COVID-19, how will we be distributing our resources to those children since they probably can't come out to the bus stop and to the school?
Yep, we've been given a fairly liberal interpretation. You know, during the school year, you have to be the recipient of the lunch card, so to speak, if you'll go back 3 years and think through the old lunch card. And also in the summer, we have to be pretty strict at who we give food to. Not so much right now. The opportunities for us to distribute food, and I'm looking at Mr. Veek for clarification on this, is far more liberal. And I don't mean that in any sort of a political liberal conservative way. I just mean that in terms of us being able to get food to those folks who need the food. So it can be a neighbor, it can be an aunt or uncle, it can be somebody that we deem appropriate to get the food to that household. So we have a pretty liberal interpretation of who we can give that food to make sure that we're addressing the food insecurity, which was the number 1 issue that we talked about. I would also, as I was talking there, I was thinking through, we talk quite a little bit in a response team. We have a response team that began meeting every day and currently meets multiple times per week. And food distribution comes up. It maybe has come up at every meeting. I can't think of a meeting where it hasn't come up. And how do we do it? How do we make it better? How do we make it safer, et cetera, et cetera? We have gloves that everybody wears. We have opportunities for folks to wear masks if they want to. We're looking at the way we take the food off the bus and get it to the recipients. I was going to say to students, but it's not always a student. So we look at the social distancing, and we've come a long ways from early on having folks on those trips who wanted to get off and give hugs and and had folks on the other end who wanted to receive hugs. Just a week or a week and a half ago, we had somebody bring on big stuffed animals that we began giving hugs. And imagine that, we'd have dozens or hundreds giving the same stuffed animal hugs. We put an end to that. I mean, all done with purity of thought in mind, but we can't do those things right now. So we're looking at how are our folks dressed? What are they doing in terms of social distancing? What are we doing to make the environment as safe as it can be so that we can attain goal number one, which is to take care of the food insecurity that we have in our community. Any other questions on food distribution?
No, just some observation. You're doing a great job of keeping those kids fed, reducing the frequency to keep everybody safe, and then that generous giving of the food. So just really clear that all hands are on board making that happen in a very thorough way and conscientious way.
You know, Nan, as you say that too, I need to give credit to a lot of places on this. Number one, nowhere in our district have I heard we shouldn't do that, or we can't do that, or we won't do that. I haven't heard that from an employee perspective. I haven't heard it from a board perspective, which makes this easy for me. I haven't heard it from a government perspective. Nobody has thrown up a barrier. So this has been the easy thing to do. It's definitely the right thing to do, but it has been an easy thing to do as well. So thanks for that. Another topic I'll bring up is one, I don't know if you've heard about this yet or not, but it's graduation. Trying to be funny. I suspect you've all heard about it, and so have I. And folks tend to be giving some grace on this, but as we come closer and closer to May 24th, which is the scheduled day for graduation, the emotion is beginning to rise. So let me talk to you about where we are in the conversation and the decision making when it comes to graduation. And let me first by a long ways, we want graduation to go off as scheduled on May 24th. I recognize that as each day goes by, that hope is dimming. And so we need to plan for the possibility, and we're getting close to even the eventuality that May 24th is not graduation day. So if it's not, what does graduation day look like? And by the way, I think we need to make an announcement soon on May 24th so students' families can make plans. But as of today, we haven't abandoned May 24th. We're getting closer. I don't want to be naive enough to think that we're not getting closer. We're still more than a month away from that date, so we're going to hang on to it for at least another week. And I don't know beyond that, but for at least another week. So that's still goal number one. Knowing also that it takes a good deal of time to plan a graduation, face-to-face or virtual, we're looking at alternatives. So please know that we will not simply dismiss graduation. I think it's easier to dismiss prom, and I'm not saying prom isn't significant, because quite frankly, I think I remember prom more than I remember graduation, but we won't just dismiss graduation. Doing nothing for graduation is not an option for us, not at all. So we won't simply dismiss graduation. Nor have we determined that if May 24th is not graduation day, that we will automatically have a virtual graduation. That has not been determined either. Our first goal is to have a face-to-face graduation. So let me talk about what we have done and what we are doing to help us get the information we need to make a good decision. First, I met with seniors in my student advisory group last week, and I asked the group of senior representatives what they would prefer if May 24th were not a graduation day possibility. And they helped me think through several possibilities, such as potentially moving it, or what a meaningful virtual graduation day might look like. I don't want to get into those specifics because I don't want people to think we've made a decision to do a virtual graduation day. But they really were a tremendous think tank for me. That group is a small group, so we'll expand the opportunity to hear from more seniors. I would also tell you that I met with them, oh gosh, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday last week. I don't remember exactly. It was a morning. And over the weekend, I got an email from one of them who had done an absolute about face on what he had told me in the meeting, because he had talked with some friends and his friends had talked with some friends, and he felt compelled to come back and say, what I told you and what I thought wasn't accurate with what I'm hearing from my contemporaries. So it just validated our need to go out and bring in more voices from the senior class. So after meeting with that group, we have, we've, as I mentioned, moved to expand that those number of voices weighing in on what the graduation might look like. And beginning later this week, I'll meet with senior representative at each of our high schools, Washington, Lincoln, Roosevelt, and New Tech. I'll meet with their principals, and we'll meet virtually when I say meet. I think in every case it is representatives from the student council at each building, but I'm not positive about that. And I know I told the principals, I gave them a loose guideline of 10, but we wanted at least 10 students. And so I'm guessing we'll meet with about 50 or 60 seniors before we're all said and done. And I think we'll get a good, some good qualitative feedback on this initiative, and it'll give us some good stories and some good anecdotal data. In addition to that, later this week, we're going to send a survey to all seniors to get some quantitative data. Every senior will have a chance to weigh in on graduation. We're developing that survey instrument currently, and I'm looking at Deanne Conrad as I say that, because I know Deanne and others are working on that. Our hope is that we will get that survey out Wednesday or Thursday of this week. Am I writing a check you can't cash? Wednesday. So seniors, you should expect a survey from us on Wednesday of this week. We want that turned around quickly. So I suspect we'll give you a deadline of Friday. Okay, good point. So it'll be a quick turnaround on this, seniors. And we want your information, and we'll share that information. We'll share the survey, we'll share the data that we get, and there's no secrets there. Also, we'll be working with our partners at Sanford, Navera, and the City Health Department to see what makes sense. We'll definitely need to balance the emotion of having a face-to-face graduation ceremony with the health risks that are involved with the potential spread to students, to staff, and certainly to our community. So we'll bring some science and some factual information into the data that we receive as well. Once we do all that, we'll be in a better position to make a decision that best honors our graduating seniors. Please know that graduating in a face-to-face environment is still my goal. I will be surprised if it isn't what our data shows once we have that completed. But the fact that it's my goal doesn't mean it's a realistic goal. But we haven't abandoned that at this point. There may well be more fact-finding that we need to do. For example, I would love to figure out a way to involve family members. And I even hesitate to say that because I don't know that we'll be able to do that yet, or that we're going to do that yet. So I don't want to promise something that we're not going to do. But we will give every senior an opportunity to weigh in. And I'm sure many of the seniors are watching this live. But as this information gets out, please weigh in. I want to know what your thoughts are and what we can do to honor you. Also, for the parents who might get this information, please know that I realize that the graduation ceremony, in many ways, is for the parents. And so many other things we do are for the student. But that graduation ceremony, as a father of 3 who have gone through it, I know that's an incredibly important time for parents. So we'll do all we can to make graduation, number one, a reality, and make it meaningful. Whether that's in person or virtual, we will do our best to make it meaningful for the graduating seniors and for the families of the graduating seniors. My hope is that it's face-to-face. We'll see. Questions on that? Okay. Grading conversations have been taking place. I think we're getting to a good spot as to how we will grade and what we will grade. Dr. Boyson and her staff have put out information to our entire staff. And in its simplest form, I would say that if students show up, metaphorically speaking, they will get the grade that they had at the end of the 3rd quarter, or better if deserved. Students must be engaged. So how do we track that engagement? What do we mean by that? We've put together a new metric for determining when a student is actively learning. Actively learning is happening, this is our definition, when a student has accessed remote learning electronically, picked up, or is requesting learning materials. So far, that's the bar. It's a pretty low bar, but we want that involvement from our students, and so far, that is the bar for actively learning. We realized early on that we're not equipped to know what engagement looks like in this environment, so we need to set and analyze some criteria. So that's the criteria that we've set at this point. And we've began bringing in data to give us an opportunity to figure out what this looks like. And when we look at that data over 2 weeks, we started the data collection for March 30th to April 3rd. That was our first week. And when we look at the data over 2 weeks, so March 30th to April 3rd, and then last week, April 6th to April 9th, here's what we've seen so far. We see that our elementary schools were at 84% in week 1 and are now at 86% actively learning in week 2. Our middle schools were at 73% in week 1 and are now at 85% in week 2. And our high schools were at 90% in week 1 and are now at 93% in week 2. You'll notice that every grade level, every gradation there has improved week over week. And I think there are several reasons for that. One is I think we are getting more serious about you have to be involved. You don't even have to really do a lot, quite frankly, but you have to be involved. And so I think that message is getting out there. And I made the analogy when I first saw this information. By the way, I just got this information this morning, and I was somewhat amazed at the percentages that I was looking at. So I made the analogy that the numbers seem to correlate to our district attendance numbers. I made that analogy this afternoon. And so Doug Morrison, unbeknownst to me, was listening to what I said, and Doug went and did what Doug does. He found out more information. And what Doug did was he went and grabbed our state report card and found out that there are 2 attendance indicators on our state report card. And there is indeed a reason to think that there might be a relationship in the numbers. The first attendance indicator in our state report card is for students attending 90% or more days that have attended at least 15 consecutive days in our district. And our district average on that indicator is 91%. The second indicator is chronic absenteeism, which measures the percentage of students that have attended more than 10 days and have missed 10% or more enrolled days in the school year. And our district average on that indicator is 18%. So you see the two numbers there, 10% and 18%. Without getting overly complex, but yet I thought it was important to think about as we think through this new actively learning metric. Yet knowing that we're challenging our teachers and principals to engage students. I send out a weekly message, and almost every week I talk to our teachers about engaging our students, but I don't tell them how. I just expect them to do that. And we talk to our principals in the same manner. And I'll overlay, I want them to get our kids to think, keep them engaged and get them to think. That's really my challenge to our teachers. And I will overlay all of that data that I've already shared with one more data point, and that data point is mobility. District-wide, we have a mobility rate of approximately 15%, with many of our title schools being over 20% mobility, meaning that finding and engaging students is a challenge for us even without the COVID-19 situation. That is a challenge for us day after day in a normal school year. The bottom line is, when I look at what actively learning means and recognizing that it's a low bar, I would think that our engagement numbers, our actively learning numbers, are exemplary. I would give our teaching staff an A in my 5 years here. I would give them an A+ for what they have done for our community's children since March 13th. I'd probably give them an A+ for all 5 years too, but I would definitely give them an A+ for what they've done since March 13th. I just tremendous. And again, I recognize the low bar here. This is an environment our teachers were not prepared for, our students and families were not prepared for, and our administrators weren't prepared for. To begin to put some numbers to what does that look like versus just throwing our hands up in the air and just living day to day, I think is, well, exemplary is the word that dug through my way and one that I've thrown your way. Any questions on grading and what actively learning is and our attendance? That's a lot of stuff I just threw at you there.
In addition to the active learning that takes place in the classroom and now.
So they can hear you.
Sure, sorry. Well, when we talk about actively learning, really should be a broad definition to the extent that these kids are having social challenges right now for them. Yeah, we're talking just the mental challenges in terms of the world news. They're coping, with this huge disruption in their individual lives. So there's a lot of active learning that's taking place just given what COVID means and how that disruption is really impacting them personally, the teachers, their neighbors. So given that's in play, in addition to what the expectations are to continue to learn out of a book, I think having the bar where it's at is really prudent given the totality of what we're facing as a world and what impact this will have lifelong for us, for our kids. So I think it's very sensitive given the issues, given the crisis, given this huge disruption.
Well stated, I agree. I'll give Dr. Boyson and her staff and Doug Morrison and his staff just great kudos for putting all those numbers together and bringing that. And we will continue to look at that week over week. Okay, the next topic, and if you're wondering, the last topic for me is what about makeup days? You'll recall that we missed a day for snow in January. And when we missed the first 3 days of the COVID-19 outbreak, I said, consider those 3 days as you would consider a weather-related absence. So that totals 4 days that students and staff could make up. It has long been our district stance to make up what we miss. I think that is a really good rule of thumb. We've been very careful in the past not to deviate from that or not deviate from that very much, because we don't want to set the precedent of not making that time up. However, just as this is a really strange time, a really strange sequence of events, I would recommend we break from that practice this year. I will be recommending to you, to the board, in a subsequent board meeting, that we do not make up any of the 4 days we have missed. To be clear, I will recommend that May 20th is the last day for students and May 21st is the last day for staff. You need not to respond to that recommendation tonight, and as it will come to you in a future board meeting. So with that, I'll stand by for any questions.
I think that recommendation with the leaving the end date as May 20th is just very wise for many reasons. It allows, since state mandated testing has been waived, we captured some days there. There's been changes in what we're expecting of our students with testing, semester testing as well. So I just think there's no reason for the extension, plus it just, it allows us to plan going forward on everything. So thank you for that recommendation. Any other questions for Dr. Maher?
I just have a statement, Tolkien. I'm just extremely grateful and impressed. I know all of us have heard from staff and parents with concerns, and the way everyone is going about not brushing it off, but diving in and looking into the best outcome. I'm just really grateful for the amount of work that everybody's put in, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
And hopefully in the near future, we will be updating the public as well about our plans on the boundaries as well, and what that looks like, right?
I can't believe I didn't have that on here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I absolute miss on my part there. And I was asked about this during a media briefing this afternoon. We are putting together a plan that would re-engage the community in the boundary conversation. And it would be my hope that we can still meet the June deadline. If you think about this with the end in mind and back it up, it would also be my hope, and I think we're figuring out that we can do this in a meaningful way using technology to still allow the public to weigh in. They'll weigh in from home or somewhere other than one of our 5 middle schools, but we'll still be able to have that opportunity for folks to weigh in. We think we can match the 5 opportunities. It is also our hope to culminate that with a one-time reconvening of the task force to bring that full circle and to kind of put a bow on that community input and then hand that off to the board. I don't remember. I have the dates they're boggling my mind right now. Somewhere at the end of May, if not in the end of May, at the beginning of June, that still gives you as a board an opportunity to look through the recommendations that have come through the community, that have come through the task force, and ultimately have worked their way to this table for your ratification. So that will still be our goal, to meet that June 30 deadline. And we think we can do that. We think we can do it in a meaningful way. It won't be a face-to-face way. And there are a number of reasons for continuing that at this point. One is, I think we've started it. I think we were at a logical stopping point. It was right before we started the community meetings. I think we can get right back into that and not skip a beat. The problem is it won't be face-to-face. So if you wanted to say your piece in front of an audience, that part will go away. But to have anybody engaged that wants to be engaged, I think we're actually going to make it a little easier, because you can do it from the comfort of your home to be able to do this. I wanted to be careful for a while. We thought maybe we shouldn't do this with the coronavirus going on, and we wanted to be very mindful of the stress that comes with dealing with this as a community. And certainly as a school district, we're not immune to that stress. But I also think if we can move forward, it gives us something meaningful to do as a school district, and we can still hit that June 30 deadline. Also, we need to be done with the boundary process so that we can wrestle with such issues as open enrollment in the fall. And believe it or not, we have to have those wrapped up by the end of November or 1st of December, somewhere right in there. And all of these things require some time. So on the one hand, you know, I've said all along, well, we have some time. Time is on our side. We've let a month or so lapse. I think we can begin to renew that issue and doing it in a meaningful way and still give the community and the board the time and the space they need to come up with a logical conclusion. So I'm glad you brought that up. That is definitely something we're looking at continuing the process.
Thank you, Dr. Maher. I appreciate all that information. Will some of that be going out in like our email communication to families as well? Perfect. Thank you very much. I think that's just such great information, and people love the communication you guys have been providing. I think it really helps when there's anxious people sitting at home wondering what's going on when they get that communication. Deanne and your team, you have just done a wonderful job, so thank you. And the message that I keep, two things I wanted to say is, at home I have on my bulletin board for my boys is show up. And that's what basically we're saying to our students. If you're showing up and you're participating, that's half a life, really, is showing up. And if you're going to do this and get there, we're not going to punish you for the transition to remote learning. So I think that's a great message that we're sending our families. And although our buildings are closed to the public, the Sioux Falls School District is showing that we're not closed to serving excellence to our community here in Sioux Falls. And you all have just done such a fabulous job and made it really easy as a board member. We haven't had to push you in direction. You guys take things full steam ahead and have been very successful in implementing these changes. So thank you very much to everyone. Moving on the agenda. Approval of consent agenda 8A through E. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved, Parker.
Moved by, okay. We have a motion by Parker, a second by Tolke. I'll do roll call. Board Member Baker.
Yes.
Board Member Parker.
Aye.
Board Member Tolke.
Aye.
Board Member Ryder.
Aye.
Board Member Mickelson, aye. Passes 5-0 for the approval of the consent agenda. There are no supplemental consent agenda items on 9. I accidentally went over the conflicts of interest, but there were no new ones presented, I believe, today. Anyway, sorry about that. Now to the reports of the superintendent.
Just want to go straight to Teresa.
All right, good evening. Tonight, we have 2 board reports. The first one is the K-12 math curriculum study. The math curriculum study began September 2018 and ran through March 2020, so 18 months. We've been working on this new math curriculum that will be implemented next, with your approval, next fall. We had over 120 people involved, including general ed, special education teachers, EL, English language teachers, instructional coaches, parents, administrators, and community members. The curriculum aligns with the South Dakota math standards and practices from the National Council of Teachers and Mathematics. The K-12 mathematical goals that we have aligned are students will demonstrate understanding of mathematical patterns and relationships. They'll communicate mathematically, verbally, numerically, symbolically, and graphically. They'll demonstrate computational fluency, apply flexible and creative problem solving, and engage in mathematical discourse to strengthen their understanding. The elementary priorities are rigorous and engaging inquiry-based program, structure for interventions for students with unfinished learning, and the materials we are recommending is Investigative 3 in number, data, and space, and that's our current curriculum, and we're using the updated version for that. We're adding the Bridges Intervention Math Program and hands-on math in 1 and 2 for our RISE students. At middle school, the priorities are to develop common curriculum for Tier 1 that can be diversified for EL students, general math and accelerated math, define interventions for Tier 2 students, identify appropriate resources for special education students who are in resource mathematics. The materials for middle school are illustrative math for that Tier 1, that core instruction, Dreambox learning for our small group interventions through Power Math, number words for our resource math students, and Moving with Math is another curriculum that will be utilized for resource math, and hands-on math 2 and teacher to the standards of math curriculum plus attainment for our RISE students at middle school level. At high school, we really looked at providing supports for all students to meet those new graduation requirements. They need 3 math credits to graduate, and Sioux Falls School District offers 25 different math courses at the high school level. So really looking at how we can expand that to provide opportunities for all students, including students that struggle and those on that advanced track. So our new courses are pre-algebra, investigative algebra 1, applied math, college prep, and college algebra. The recommended materials at the high school level is ALEX, and it's an online coursework for most high school students that support them as they move through that coursework, and we've piloted that program this year, and it's had great reviews from students and staff. Pearson materials are for AP Stats, Consumer Math, Applied Math, supportive coursework for students with disabilities, and Cengage materials for accelerated pre-calc and AP Calculus. And Glencoe text for the resource Consumer Math and attainment materials for RISE. The cost for the new implementation for general education is $3.7 million, and for special ed, it's $295,000. Summary, after 18 months of study, the district curriculum review is recommending instructional materials from a very number of publishers, subcommittees at the elementary, middle, and high school levels focused on ensuring there were resources to support interventions for students who struggle, as well as resources to challenge students who excel. As a result of the study, additional courses will be added to the high school math offerings to support the new graduation requirements and to provide options for all students. With that, the recommendation is to approve the K-12 math curriculum adoption. I'll stand by for any questions.
Maybe I'll just ask it and you can repeat it so we don't have to move it back and forth so the people at home. But when I asked you this question, I just find it very interesting that how much the college algebra took off at Lincoln through the pilot and how that's going to be offered. So if you could explain that a little bit.
Right. The question was college algebra, and college algebra was offered this year the first time at Lincoln High School, and we had 60 students take that opportunity, and it's dual credit through USD. And we are expanding that opportunity to the other high schools for next year. And so it really does show that there is a desire out there for kids, and we're able to meet that. So.
Any other questions for Dr. Boyson?
All right. No other questions?
Thank you.
All right. We need approval?
Yeah, please. Do I need to do it back here maybe for that? Sorry. So they can hear me. Thank you. I have a motion from Board Member Baker to approve the K-12 mathematics curriculum adoption. Do I have a second?
second Ryder.
Motion from Baker, second from Ryder. All those in favor, I'll do roll call again. Board Member Baker.
Aye.
Board Member Parker.
Aye.
Board Member Tolke.
Aye.
Board Member Ryder.
Aye.
Mickelson, aye. It passes 5-0. Thank you.
The second board report tonight is the Workforce Development and Career Exposure Report. This report is to provide you information on our business partnerships that support career exposure and provide internship opportunities for students in the Sioux Falls School District. The workforce development and internship programs support our district priority Area 1 student outcomes and priority statement 1 of our strategic plan. Through school business partnerships, they benefit students, teachers, and the community in the Sioux Falls area. And the Sioux Falls businesses have been eager to provide this opportunity for job shadows and internships for high school students. Local businesses realize the importance of connecting with students early, as these young adults are our future workforce in the Sioux Falls area, whether immediately after school or upon completion of post-secondary. Over the last 2 years, the Sioux Falls District has developed partnerships that provide financial assistance for dual credit coursework, career exposure, student job shadow experiences, and internship opportunities for juniors and seniors. Tonight, I'll highlight 4 different programs that we've developed throughout the year with business partnerships. Our first one is the Avera Academy. It's a collaborative partnership between Avera, Sioux Falls School District, and Southeast Technical Institute. The Academy supports 24 students annually. The Academy includes a menu of courses for students to simultaneously complete a high school diploma and dual coursework out at STI. And they work towards that post-secondary degree in health care and related fields. Avera provides the funding for 24 students, that dual credit funding. They have a career coach to help support the students as they go through that coursework, and they offer opportunities on Friday mornings to be in various healthcare environments to see what might be the right fit for them. And so that was a program that was started this last year and will continue into next year. The second program is a career internship program that was developed in partnership with the Department of Labor and Regulation, and we started that in January of 2018. The Department of Labor and Regulation provide 4 career advisors, 1 at each high school in the Sioux Falls School District. The career advisors help develop internship opportunities in the community, and they work with students on soft skills and support the businesses as they develop that internship program. During the 2019-20 school year, we've had 69 students participate in that program. And that program is taking on a different lens for next year as those career advisors expand their exposure out into the surrounding communities also. The next program is Classroom to Careers. That was started this year. It's a joint partnership with Sanford Health Systems, the City of Sioux Falls, and First Premier, providing funding for students at Washington High School who begin their coursework towards post-secondary degree out at Southeast Tech. The difference with this and Avera Academy is the coursework for the students is on campus at Washington. So the Southeast Tech instructor is providing that instruction on our campus. There is a career coach, and she helps to provide opportunities for students, really connecting with them and helping to break down any barriers that they might have to complete any coursework and applications towards that post-secondary for financial aid and scholarships. The program's designed to give chance the students to see themselves as post-secondary students and develop and take charge of their future goals. And the fourth one, I said 4, we have 5 programs, I'm sorry. The next one is Career Connections, and this is a developing program with the Sioux Falls Development Foundation. It's still, it's slated to start next fall. And so really working with them to bring in 60 students for next year. Right now, we have 42 that have completed that application, and our counselors in our buildings are still working to fill up the rest of those positions for students. COVID-19 kind of interfered, and so really reaching out to them. But the Career Connections is meant to be a clearinghouse for the Sioux Falls businesses, so that way it's a one-stop shop where a business can say, we're interested. For next year, we have 6 businesses that have provided financial support for these students. City of Sioux Falls, First Premier, Gage Brothers, Grand Prairie, Mid-Continent Communications, and Sanford Health Systems. Again, I said 60 students will have the opportunity to take dual credit through Career Tech Academy, Community College of Sioux Falls, or Southeast Tech. And so it really broadens that scope of opportunity for students. Again, they have a career advisor, and that career advisor will work really closely with the students to help find out what it is they need. The program looks a little bit different, as on Fridays, the students will be, the first semester, they will spend 2 weeks at each one of these businesses, the 6 businesses that provided funding. They'll spend 2 weeks at each one of those businesses exploring opportunities. Second semester, the students will spend a whole semester at the business that they chose, and recognizing that there's all types of career opportunities in every business, whether it's IT, HR, on the floor, in the business office, there's all kinds of opportunities for students. So that's a new opportunity. We're excited to work with the Sioux Falls Development Foundation as that moves forward. And the last one is Raven Rise. Raven was our first business that developed this model, and really they've done a great job with mentoring students in their programs. And Raven Rise stands for Raven Impacting Students to Excel, and worked with them to the best in class model. The Raven Rise program provides internship experiences to develop employability skills, to explore career opportunities. They take 6 to 10 students annually, and within that program they have a mentor, and that mentor helps to make sure that they're meeting their obligations within there, but also it's that person to give them the feedback. It's not their boss, but it's a mentor within the program. And Raven also provides topics for learning throughout their time there on motivation, living well, budgeting, interview skills, teamwork, respect, and attitude. And it's a great program. It's a great partnership for our students. The students that work there get paid, and then they also build that culture within that community. So in summary, the community partnerships provide opportunities for students who might not otherwise have a post-secondary education. The community partnership allows students to explore career options and transition to the next steps after high school and create connections in the business community of Sioux Falls. With that, I'll stand by for any questions.
No questions, just an observation. I will say where there's a will, there's a way. And most definitely, we're giving our students opportunities and experiences to both improve themselves and really use their talents to go out and serve the world. We are in the business of product development, and our product is our students. And I do believe that we are putting our energies to our children, and it will bear its fruit in time. So, thanks.
Thanks. And we do, we have a great community. We see that from everything that Dr. Maher shared here about the support, and everybody gathers together around the students and the families and the business community, and we're just very thankful to be a part of that. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Teresa. Any other questions for Dr. Boyson? I echo what Nan said, and just say, just these programs alone have over 188 student opportunities. And I know there's other smaller opportunities that we have, like with our teachers program and with the building, I can't think of the home builders and
Coda.
AGC, yeah, and all that. It's just such a great experience for these children to have this opportunity to do that. So thank you for working hard to get these programs and keep them successful.
Community effort, thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve the report?
So moved.
A motion from Board Member Baker. Do I have a second?
Second Parker.
We had a jinx. I'll take Tolkey. A second from Tolkey. All those in favor, I'll do roll call. Board Member Baker.
Aye.
Board Member Parker.
Aye.
Board Member Tolkey.
Aye.
Board Member Ryder.
Aye.
Mickelson, aye. It passes 5-0. Now on to the policy regulation. Board Member Parker or Ryder, who is taking this one tonight?
Kit Parker is.
Thank you.
All right, so we have 5 policies that are up for review, revised tonight. I'll go through them pretty quickly, as most of them didn't have any changes at all. So we had GBI, staff participation in political activities. That had no changes. We had IG and its accompanying regulation, curriculum development, adoption, and review. And that we just updated language to reflect the Sioux Falls School District's current curriculum review cycle as it aligns with the South Dakota Department of Education. We have ILD, student surveys, protection of pupil rights, no changes. JIH, student interrogations, searches, and arrests, no changes. And JK and its accompanying regulation, student discipline, suspension, and expulsion, no changes. So I would move to approve the review revision of the above policies.
Thank you, Kate. We have a motion from Board Member Parker. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Board Member Baker, seconds. I'll do roll call. Board Member Baker.
Aye.
Board Member Parker.
Aye.
Board Member Tolkey.
Aye.
Board Member Ryder.
Aye.
And Board Member Mickelson. Aye. Passes 5-0. Anything else for the good of the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Board Member Baker moves to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second, Ryder. Second, Parker.
A second from Ryder. Board Member Baker.
Aye.
Board Member Parker.
Aye.
Board Member Tolkey.
Aye.
Board Member Ryder.
Aye.
And Board Member Mickelson. We are adjourned. Thank you. Well, I had practice last week which was helpful.